Welcome to the Success Mastery Institute, where we unlock your true potential.
Right now, someone somewhere is losing everything. Their business is collapsing, their relationship is ending, their health is failing. Their certainty about the future is evaporating like water on hot pavement. And in that moment of absolute devastation, they're being given the greatest gift of their life, they just don't know it yet. This isn't optimistic nonsense. This isn't positive thinking propaganda. This is observable reality. Every person who has ever accomplished something meaningful has one thing in common: they were forged in difficulty, not in spite of their struggles, but because of them. The hardship wasn't an unfortunate detour on the road to success. It was the road itself. We live in a world obsessed with avoiding pain. Entire industries exist to help you circumvent discomfort, minimize risk, and maintain your current level of ease. But here's what those industries won't tell you. Comfort is the most dangerous place you can be. Comfort is where dreams go to die. Comfort is where potential atrophies. Comfort is where you become a lesser version of yourself while convincing yourself you're being smart, being strategic, being safe. The truth? Safety is an illusion. Security is temporary. Comfort is a liability. Because the universe doesn't care about your plans. Life will test you whether you're ready or not. And when that test comes, not if, but when the only question that matters is whether you've built the capacity to handle it. Picture this. October 2008. Bernard Ashford stands in a storage facility in Cleveland, Ohio. 42 years old. 17 years building his architectural firm. Gone. Not just struggling, completely finished. The financial crisis didn't wound his business, it executed it. 3 major projects canceled in 1 week. His partners scattered. His savings drained trying to keep the doors open for employees who ultimately lost their jobs anyway. His wife left 6 weeks ago. Couldn't handle the stress, the uncertainty, the man he'd become under that pressure, angry, desperate, someone she didn't recognize. Bernard moved his drafting table into a 10 by 15 storage unit. Not as some romantic gesture of dedication. He literally had nowhere else to go. The apartment was gone. His parents were deceased. Pride kept him from calling the few friends who remained. So there he was, sleeping on a camping cot next to boxes of his life's work blueprints and models and awards that meant absolutely nothing now. That first morning, he woke to fluorescent lights humming overhead. Someone had arrived early to access their unit. The concrete was cold. His back ached. He was 42 years old, sleeping in a storage facility, and the weight of that reality pressed down on him like something physical. He sat up on that cot, and for the first time in months, he didn't immediately start planning or scheming or figuring out how to fix everything. He just sat there, and in that stillness, something shifted. He looked at his drafting table. Really looked at it. This beautiful tool he'd owned since architecture school. He'd created shopping centers on that table, office buildings, residential complexes that housed hundreds of families. His hands knew every inch of its surface. And sitting there in that storage unit, with nothing left but this table and his skills, Bernard had a realization that changed everything. They could take his business, his money, his marriage, his reputation, but they couldn't take what he knew. They couldn't take what he could do. The knowledge in his head, the skill in his hands, the vision he could translate from imagination to paper that was still his. He made a decision that morning. Not a grand declaration, not some movie moment, just a simple decision. He would take one action that day. One thing that moved him forward. He pulled out his phone service, barely maintained, and called a small real estate developer he'd met years ago at a conference. Small enough to have survived the crash. Small enough to maybe need someone desperate enough to work cheap. The call lasted 4 minutes. The developer remembered him. Had a small strip mall renovation. Nothing glamorous. The fee was embarrassing, less than Bernard used to spend on office supplies in a month. He took it, worked on it right there at that drafting table in the storage unit. Delivered it in 3 days. The developer was impressed. Asked if he could handle another project, then another. Bernard didn't know it then, but he was discovering something that only adversity can teach you. When you have nothing, you pay attention differently. You notice things. That second project, he saw inefficiencies in the design that his old self would have missed. His old self had been comfortable, working with big budgets and big teams. His old self could afford to be sloppy because there were people to catch mistakes. This new Bernard, he caught everything. Had to. There was no safety net. Every detail mattered because every client mattered because every dollar mattered. 6 months later, he was working out of a rented office space, nothing fancy, but not a storage unit. A year later, he had 2 junior architects working with him. But here's what's important. He wasn't just rebuilding the same business. He was building something better, more efficient, more focused. He specialized now retail renovations for small to mid-sized developers. His old firm had tried to be everything to everyone. This new practice was surgical in its focus. The bankruptcy from his first firm? It taught him financial discipline that made this new venture profitable from month 3. The divorce? It taught him that success means nothing if you sacrifice your humanity for it, so he built a culture where his employees went home at reasonable hours. The humiliation of that storage unit? It taught him that ego is expensive. He didn't need the fancy office or the impressive title or the validation from peers. He needed to create value. Everything else was noise. 2 years after waking up on that camping cot, Bernard was making more money than he had at the peak of his first firm. But more than that, he was making it sustainably. He understood risk now. He understood himself. The crisis had stripped away everything that wasn't essential and forced him to rebuild from a foundation of reality rather than optimism. Here's what Bernard discovered, and what you need to understand. Adversity is information. When everything is going well, you're flying blind. You think you're successful, but you don't actually know what you're capable of because you've never been tested. Comfort lies to you. It tells you you're prepared. It tells you you're strong. Then reality shows up, and you discover that comfort was just comfort, nothing more. But crisis? Crisis tells you the truth. It shows you what's real and what's illusion. It burns away the excess. Most people experience this burning and call it destruction. They see what they've lost. Bernard learned to see what remained, and what remained was everything he actually needed. Your hardship right now, whatever it is, it's not happening to you. It's happening for you. It's revealing capacities you didn't know existed. It's teaching you lessons that no book, no course, no mentor could ever teach you, because some knowledge only comes through experience. Some strength only comes through struggle. Some wisdom only comes through pain. The question isn't whether you'll face hard times. You will. We all do. The question is, what will you let those times build inside you? Something fascinating happens inside your brain when you face genuine difficulty. Neuroscientists have documented it. Psychologists have studied it. But most people never understand it because they're too busy trying to escape the very process that's transforming them. When you encounter an obstacle that genuinely challenges you, not a minor inconvenience, but a real barrier, your neural pathways start rewiring themselves. Your brain literally creates new connections, new circuits, new possibilities that didn't exist before the challenge appeared. This is adaptation at the cellular level. Your mind doesn't just think differently after hardship, it becomes structurally different. The problem-solving capabilities you develop under pressure aren't temporary skills you can lose. They're permanent upgrades to your operating system. But here's the catch. This transformation only happens when the pressure is real. Simulated challenges don't trigger it. Hypothetical problems don't activate it. You can't think your way into this growth. You have to live through it. Every major breakthrough in human achievement has come from this exact process. Innovation doesn't emerge from brainstorming sessions in comfortable conference rooms. It emerges from necessity, from limitation, from someone facing a problem so pressing, so immediate, that their brain had no choice but to evolve a solution. Constraint breeds creativity. Scarcity breeds ingenuity. Desperation breeds breakthrough. Now watch how this plays out in real life. Yuki Tanaka was 28 years old when a drunk driver ran a red light and changed her existence forever. The collision happened on a Tuesday afternoon in Portland, Oregon. She was driving home from her job as a corporate event planner, good salary, respectable position, comfortable life. She woke up 3 days later in a hospital bed, unable to feel anything below her waist. The doctors used clinical terms: permanent spinal cord injury, paralysis, wheelchair dependent. Her life as she knew it was finished. The first 6 months were hell. Not because of the physical limitations, those were obvious, manageable, something you could plan around. The hell was psychological. Watching her friends slowly drift away because they didn't know how to act around her anymore. Losing her job because the office building wasn't accessible and her employer found it easier to let her go than retrofit the space. Feeling the eyes of strangers in public, that mixture of pity and discomfort that made her want to disappear. But somewhere around month 7, something shifted. Yuki was trying to attend a tech conference, her first attempt at a professional event since the accident. The venue claimed to be accessible. It wasn't. Ramps were too steep. Doors were too narrow. Accessible bathrooms were locked, and nobody could find the key. She spent 4 hours navigating a space that should have taken 20 minutes to move through. Most people would have left angry and defeated. Yuki left with an idea. She understood something that able-bodied architects and designers couldn't possibly grasp. Accessibility isn't about following building codes. It's about understanding how people actually move through space when their bodies work differently. She'd been an event planner, which meant she understood flow, logistics, user experience. Now she had first-hand knowledge of every barrier, every obstacle, every thoughtless design choice that made spaces unusable for millions of people. Yuki started consulting, one small business at a time. A coffee shop that wanted to expand its customer base. A startup office that had just hired someone who used a wheelchair. Her pitch was simple. She didn't just tell them what was legally required. She showed them how to create spaces that were genuinely welcoming, genuinely functional. And because she lived this reality every single day, she caught problems that no checklist would ever identify. Within 2 years, she was working with major corporations, tech companies launching new headquarters, retail chains redesigning stores, universities renovating campuses. Her fees surpassed what she'd made as an event planner. But the money wasn't the point. The point was that her limitation had become her advantage. The very thing that seemed to end her career had actually created a new one, better, more meaningful, more lucrative. Here's what Yuki discovered through direct experience. Obstacles reveal opportunities that comfort conceals. When you can do things the easy way, you never question whether the easy way is the best way. You never innovate, you never improve. You never see the gaps in the system because the system works fine for you. But take away the easy path, force yourself to find another route, and suddenly you're seeing possibilities everywhere. You're noticing inefficiencies, you're solving problems, you're creating value in ways you never imagined. This is the hidden architecture of growth. Difficulty doesn't just build character, it builds capability. Specific, tangible capabilities that translate directly into results. When Bernard faced financial ruin, he didn't just develop resilience. He developed financial discipline, operational efficiency, and strategic focus. When Yuki lost her mobility, she didn't just develop courage. She developed expertise, insight, and a business model that transformed an entire industry's approach to accessibility. The pattern repeats across every field, every industry, every area of human endeavor. The athlete who suffers a career-threatening injury and comes back stronger because they had to completely rebuild their technique. The entrepreneur who loses their first business and builds their second one with wisdom that only failure can teach. The artist who faces rejection for years and develops a unique voice precisely because they couldn't succeed by following the conventional path. This is why artificially easy paths don't produce exceptional results. When everything is handed to you, when obstacles are removed before you encounter them, when well-meaning people smooth your road, you never develop the capabilities that create breakthrough success. You remain perpetually dependent on favorable conditions. The moment circumstances shift, you're lost. But build your skills in the crucible of adversity. Those skills are anti-fragile. They don't just survive difficulty, they thrive on it. Each new challenge becomes fuel rather than obstacle. Each setback becomes data rather than defeat. You develop what psychologists call learned resilience, but it's more than resilience. It's adaptive expertise, the ability to face novel problems and solve them, not because you've encountered that specific problem before, but because you've trained yourself to handle problems in general. Think about what's happening in your life right now. Whatever challenge you're facing, whatever obstacle is blocking your path, it's not just a problem to solve. It's a training ground. Your brain is rewiring itself as you work through this difficulty. You're developing capabilities you'll use for the rest of your life, skills that will serve you in contexts you can't even imagine yet. The question is whether you're conscious of this process. Are you resenting the difficulty, wishing it would go away, counting the days until things return to normal? Or are you mining it for insights? Are you paying attention to what you're learning? Are you noticing the new capabilities emerging from the struggle? Because here's the reality. The obstacle isn't going away until it teaches you what you need to learn. That's not mystical thinking. That's practical observation. Life keeps presenting you with variations of the same challenge until you develop the capacity to handle it. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because growth works through repetition and escalation. Each iteration of the problem is preparing you for something larger. Stop waiting for circumstances to improve. Start extracting every lesson from the circumstances you have. One crisis changes you. Multiple crises transform you into someone unrecognizable in the best possible way. Most people pray for one smooth, uninterrupted path to success. They want to avoid complications, dodge setbacks, and maintain steady progress toward their goals. But that's not how extraordinary capability is built. Real power comes from facing multiple, overlapping challenges that force you to develop complementary skill sets you'd never acquire through a comfortable journey. Think about compound interest in finance. A single deposit doesn't create wealth. It's the accumulation of deposits over time, with each one building on the previous ones, interest stacking on interest, that generates exponential growth. Adversity works the same way. Each challenge deposits a specific capability into your personal account. The bankruptcy teaches you financial discipline. The health crisis teaches you the value of energy management. The betrayal teaches you discernment. Separately, these are useful skills. Together, they create something extraordinary, a complete operating system for navigating complexity. This is where most people misunderstand their own journey. They view each setback as an isolated incident, a random piece of bad luck that has nothing to do with anything else. They compartmentalize their struggles. Work problems over here, relationship issues over there, health concerns in another box entirely. But these challenges aren't separate. They're interconnected lessons, each one preparing you for the next level of difficulty, each one adding another tool to your arsenal. Raymond Foster learned this the hard way, 50 years old now, but the education started 5 years ago when his business partner, someone he'd known for 15 years, someone he trusted, completely embezzled nearly $400,000 from their manufacturing company. Raymond discovered it by accident, reviewing accounts before a bank meeting. The betrayal was methodical, sophisticated, hidden in layers of false invoices and phantom vendors. By the time Raymond uncovered it, the money was gone, and so was his partner, relocated to another state where extradition was complicated and legal. Recourse was expensive. The financial hit was devastating. The company survived, barely, but Raymond had to lay off 12 employees. People with families. People who depended on those paychecks. He refinanced his house to cover payroll during the investigation. Sleep became impossible. Every relationship felt suspect. If someone that close could betray him that thoroughly, who could he trust? The paranoia was corrosive, affecting every interaction, every decision. But Raymond didn't have the luxury of falling apart because 18 months after the embezzlement was discovered, his 14-year-old daughter started experiencing symptoms nobody could explain. Fatigue that wasn't normal teenage tiredness, joint pain that moved around her body, cognitive fog that made school increasingly difficult. Doctors were baffled. Test after test came back inconclusive. Specialists offered guesses but no answers. His daughter went from honor roll student and varsity athlete to someone who struggled to get out of bed. Raymond became a different kind of investigator. He read medical journals, joined online forums for rare diseases, tracked his daughter's symptoms with spreadsheet precision. He learned to speak the language of medicine, to question diagnoses, to push for tests that doctors hadn't considered. After 11 months and 17 specialists, they found it. A rare autoimmune condition that fewer than 20,000 people in the country had been diagnosed with. Treatable, but complex. The treatment protocol was experimental, requiring constant monitoring and adjustment. Just when Raymond thought he'd reached maximum capacity for handling crisis, his body delivered its own verdict. He was 48 years old when the chest pain started during a production meeting. Heart attack. Not a minor one. The kind that makes cardiologists use words like lucky to be alive and significant damage, triple bypass surgery, 8 weeks of recovery, complete lifestyle, overhaul required. Here's where the story gets interesting. Most people hearing this would think, this man has terrible luck. 3 catastrophic events in 5 years? That's cruel. That's unfair. That's more than anyone should have to handle. And on the surface, they'd be right. Each of these crises, taken individually, would be enough to derail most people's lives. Together, they should have destroyed Raymond completely. But watch what actually happened. The embezzlement forced Raymond to build financial systems in his company that were transparent, auditable, and fraud-resistant. He implemented checks and balances he'd been too trusting to require before. Quarterly audits, dual authorization for major expenses, clear paper trails for every transaction. These weren't just protective measures, they made the entire operation more efficient. He could see cash flow in real time. He could identify problems before they became critical. Investors noticed. The company actually became more attractive to potential partners because the financial infrastructure was so solid. His daughter's illness transformed him into a medical advocate and researcher. He learned how to read scientific papers, how to evaluate evidence, how to collaborate with healthcare professionals as an informed participant rather than a passive recipient of care. This skill set spilled over into his business. When technical problems arose in manufacturing, he applied the same rigorous, research-based approach. He stopped accepting expert opinions at face value and started digging into the underlying data. Product quality improved. Innovation accelerated because Raymond was asking better questions. The heart attack was the most brutal teacher, but perhaps the most valuable. It forced complete restructuring of how he spent his time and energy. No more 16-hour days, no more eating lunch at his desk, no more skipping exercise because work demanded attention. He built a schedule that protected his health while actually increasing his productivity. He learned to delegate effectively, something his old self had resisted because he thought he had to control everything personally. He discovered that when you're physically unable to micromanage, your team rises to fill the gap, often performing better than when you were hovering over them. 3 years after the heart attack, Raymond's company was generating twice the revenue it had before the embezzlement, with a team that was more competent and autonomous than ever before. His daughter was managing her condition well, competing in adaptive sports, and thriving academically. Raymond himself was healthier at 50 than he'd been at 40. But here's the critical insight. None of this would have happened if he'd faced just one of those crises. The embezzlement alone would have made him more cautious with finances. The illness alone would have made him a better researcher. The heart attack alone would have forced health improvements. But facing all three, in rapid succession, with no time to recover between them, forced him to integrate these lessons into a completely new way of operating. He couldn't compartmentalize the solutions. Everything had to work together. The financial discipline supported the medical expenses. The research skills improved business decisions. The health protocols created the energy and mental clarity to handle both family and company demands. The crises compounded, yes, but so did the capabilities they built. This is the compound effect of adversity in action. You're not just developing isolated skills. You're building an integrated system of capabilities that work synergistically. The person who survives financial ruin is stronger. The person who survives financial ruin and health crisis is exponentially stronger. The person who survives financial ruin, health crisis, and relationship betrayal, that person is operating at a level that comfort could never produce. Your multiple challenges aren't evidence that you're cursed. They're evidence that you're being prepared for something that requires every single capability you're currently developing. Stop asking why this is happening to you. Start asking what this is building inside you. Because when you emerge from this compound furnace, you won't just be a survivor. You'll be someone with a skill set that makes you virtually unstoppable in whatever you choose to pursue next. The greatest achievements require the greatest preparation. You're in preparation now. Trust the process. So here we are. You've heard about Bernard, sleeping in that storage unit with nothing but a drafting table and a decision to take one step forward. You've heard about Yuki, turning paralysis into expertise that transformed an industry. You've heard about Raymond, facing 3 devastating crises that forged him into someone exponentially more capable than the comfortable version of himself ever was. And now comes the only question that actually matters. What are you going to do with your own fire? Because you're in it right now. Maybe not the exact circumstances these people faced, but your own version, your own crucible, your own moment where everything you thought was solid has turned liquid and you're wondering if you'll drown or if you'll discover you can swim. This isn't theory anymore. This isn't inspiration for someone else's life. This is your reality, today, right now. Here's what you need to do, starting immediately. First, stop treating your current difficulty as an interruption to your real life. This is your real life. This challenge you're facing isn't delaying your success, it's creating it. Every morning, you wake up and deal with this problem, you're building capabilities that will serve you for decades. Write that down. Put it somewhere you'll see it daily. Because your brain needs to shift from victim mode to student mode. You're not enduring this, you're learning from it. Second, document what you're learning. Get specific. Not vague inspirational nonsense about becoming stronger or more resilient. Actual, concrete skills. What are you learning to do that you couldn't do before this challenge appeared? Are you learning to negotiate, to manage finances under pressure? To stay calm when chaos erupts? To read people more accurately? To prioritize ruthlessly? Write these down, because 6 months from now, when you're through this, you need to remember exactly what you gained. These skills are your competitive advantage in everything that comes next. Third, look for the pattern in your struggles. This isn't the first hard thing you faced. What did previous challenges teach you? How did they prepare you for this current situation? You'll notice something fascinating when you do this honestly. Your difficulties have been sequential training. Each one prepared you for the next. The skills you developed 5 years ago are the exact skills you need right now. This isn't coincidence. This is how growth works. Life doesn't give you challenges you can't handle, it gives you challenges that force you to become someone who can handle them. Fourth, use what you're learning immediately. Don't wait until the crisis passes to apply your new capabilities. Deploy them now. If you're learning financial discipline because money is tight, implement systems today that will serve you when money is abundant. If you're learning to communicate more effectively because a relationship is strained, practice that communication in every interaction. If you're learning to manage your energy because health demands it, build those habits now so they're automatic later. The person you're becoming through this struggle needs to start showing up before the struggle ends. Fifth, understand that your discomfort is directional. Pain points toward growth. Resistance indicates where transformation is happening. When something feels impossibly hard, that's not a sign you're on the wrong path, it's confirmation you're exactly where you need to be. Your nervous system protests change because it prefers predictability over progress. Push through anyway. The breakthrough lives on the other side of that resistance, waiting for you to prove you're serious about becoming someone new. Now think about Bernard again. He's not running a massive architectural firm today. He doesn't want to. He's running a focused, profitable practice that serves him instead of consuming him. He works with clients he chooses, on projects that matter to him, making more money with less stress than his old model ever provided. That storage unit didn't just humble him, it clarified him. It burned away the ego, the pretense, the need for external validation. What remained was pure capability and clear purpose. Yuki travels the world now, consulting with governments and corporations on universal design. She's written a book that's required reading in architecture schools. She speaks at conferences where, years ago, she couldn't even access the bathroom. But here's what matters. She doesn't view her accident as something she overcame. She views it as something that revealed her purpose. The challenge didn't interrupt her path, it was her path. Everything before the accident was preparation. Everything after is expression of capabilities that could only have developed through that specific difficulty. Raymond still runs his manufacturing company, but he's built something sustainable now. His daughter is thriving, managing her condition with the same systematic approach her father taught her through his own research process. Raymond's health is excellent, better than most men his age, because he treats it with the same rigor he applies to business operations. And that company? It's positioned for acquisition at a valuation 3 times what it would have been worth before the embezzlement. Not despite the crises he faced, but because of what those crises forced him to build. These aren't anomalies. They're not special people with unique advantages. They're ordinary individuals who faced extraordinary difficulty and made a choice, the same choice available to you right now. They chose to use the fire instead of letting it consume them. They chose to view hardship as curriculum instead of punishment. They chose to extract every possible lesson from their pain and apply those lessons immediately. Your struggle right now is doing the same thing for you. It's teaching you something you absolutely need to know. It's building something inside you that you'll use for the rest of your life. It's preparing you for opportunities you can't even see yet, but only if you engage with it consciously. Only if you stop resisting the lesson and start learning it. Because here's the final truth. This difficulty will pass. Not today, maybe not this month, but it will pass. All challenges have a lifespan. But the question that will determine your entire future is what you'll carry with you when it ends. Will you emerge bitter, traumatized, diminished? Or will you emerge capable, wise, powerful? Will you waste this pain by simply surviving it? Or will you use it to become someone who doesn't just survive, but thrives regardless of circumstances? The choice isn't whether you face hard times. That choice was made for you by reality itself. The only choice you have is who you become through them. And that choice is made daily, hourly, in each moment when you decide how to respond to the pressure you're under. You can curse it or use it. You can resist it or learn from it. You can view yourself as a victim of difficulty or as a student of life itself. Bernard chose to see what remained instead of what was lost. Yuki chose to see opportunity in limitation. Raymond chose to integrate his lessons instead of compartmentalize his pain. They're not special. They just made better choices when everything fell apart. The same choices available to you right now, in whatever fire you're standing in. Hard times don't break you. They never have. They reveal you, refine you, and rebuild you into someone capable of things your comfortable self could never achieve. The question was never whether you could handle this. The question is who you'll choose to become while you do. Stop waiting for the struggle to end. Start using it to begin.